not saying how Nigeria will lose again, please. That's what we need from you.
First.
Excuse me. Studio. And here we are, gone past 7:30. It is freshly pressed on a Monday morning. Joining Kaide Baker and myself, Shepard Martins, in the studio. We have got Mr. C. Good morning.
Good morning, Shopware. Good morning, Kaide. Good morning, Lagos.
And from that love, the voice you've been missing, we've got Cheta in the studio. Cheta Mazi, good morning. It's been a while.
Yeah, all peoples.
See?
Seriously.
Cheta, can we please start off on a note of positivity?
Yeah, Super Eagles coming out of Nations Cup after a good performance, they're not positive. I mean, we should rename them Papa Eagles.
Welcome back,
You see, Shopper is one that has
And we've got you. Make sure you go up on youtube.com/Smooth981FM Lagos to leave your comments on the live stream. You can also send WhatsApp messages into 0809 440 And of course, we are up on Twitter. How we missed it? At Smooth90.fm. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Now we've got a whole lot of stories for you today. We're going to start off with this news coming in from this day newspaper. Herdsmen from Libya, Mali, and others still killing Benue people. That is coming in from the governor. Hold on one second. Autumn, yes. From Benue State Governor Dr. Sano Autumn, raising the alarm that herdsmen from Mali, Niger, Mauritania, Libya, and Senegal still maiming and killing people in his state. He was speaking with Rise News, and he disclosed that the enforcement of the 2017 open grazing prohibition on ranches establishment law has reduced the level of insecurity, but said that, the criminal elements that are still wreaking havoc, well, they're not there for grazing or doing cattle business. They're just there to send people away and take over their land. Okay, Cheta, I'm coming to you for this. Please.
Unfortunately, this is the kind of air power analysis policy that makes it easy for detractors to propose what could be a serious issue, what is a serious issue. To be fair, Autumn is right in one killings have kind of gone down the states. The reduction in killings coincided with the enforcement of the state's anti-open law. But root cause analysis is very, very important. And his so-called analysis doesn't seem to have done that. Instead, it seems to be an effort to distract from this rising discontent in his state over the fact that he's owing months and months of salaries to even lost track of accounts. Now, these root causes of the violence in the state bear serious analysis because it is undeniable that herders are a good proportion of the security issue in the states, but another good proportion of the security issue in the states is actually intercommunal. So, for example, in the last 3 months, 21 people have been killed in Benue State in 8 incidents that were all related to headsmen. But when you examine those incidents, three common in one of those incidents, one of which when 4 people were killed by it was clearly happening. The another one in Ceylon, 2 people were killed by the police, and the police said they killed Fulani bandits. But it looked, I'm not saying it is, it looked like it was the Nigerian police and their typical extrajudicial killing. That's what it looked like. And then the third one was at the Benue State Polytechnic in Ugbokodo. That one looks like a confirmed matter. It was a single person that was killed, a lecturer, Chris Adaecho, who was killed, and he had a reputation for being a strict lecturer. So that could be confirmed matter. So again, and I think it's because Nigerians tend to miss nuance a lot. This is not to say that headsmen are not a problem.
Hmm.
But we have this lazy
But are
attitude
they
of
the
doing
only
a catch-all
problem?
thing.
Now, my
And people like
question.
Governor Autumn, please, people like Governor Autumn are playing on that. I mean, if he simply looks at a map, he will know that it is impossible for herdsmen to be coming from Libya to cause problems in Benue. You understand? But he just throws out all these things in order to create a distraction. He's basically as bad as people like Garba Shehu and the rest, who are routinely throwing out distractions from real issues. And we cannot solve these issues if we don't understand the underlying root causes of them.
Chester, actually, you've just spoken to the question that I was going to ask you, so we'll leave it at that. By the way, a lot of people are up on the different platforms welcoming you back to the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
A lot of messages saying, I've missed you, I've missed your voice, and where have you been? I cannot read out all your messages. I didn't care. Peter, Frank, we see you all. Keep sending messages in.
All right, let's move on to our next story. This one from this day newspaper, still with you, Cheta. Army urged to exercise restraint in reprisal attacks on Abia community. Now, let me put a background to this. Troops of the Nigerian Army from the 144 Battalion have been urged to exercise restraints in their reprisal attacks on Abia oil communities of Uwaza and Obuzo in Ukwa West local government of Abia. What's with this? Check that.
Pretty sure your pronunciations have gotten his ears.
Anyways, where I'm going with this is that
there's nowhere to go with it. See, this is, I mean, there's, so it's the state chairman of PDP in Abia, Imam Waka, who is begging the army to show restraint in their reprisals. And the language that he used, please show restraint in your reprisals. Essentially, it's a given that the army will do reprisals. As in, these are the kind of things that tell you that Nigeria is a banana republic, because people don't have any confidence in the system, and that includes the soldiers. They don't have any confidence that the system will protect them, and then when they have the means to, in this case, soldiers have guns, they take the law into their hands because they want to get justice. They have zero confidence that the system in the country will give them justice. All right, why the hell should we be pleading with our own army not to exercise restraint in reprisals? Our own army that is meant to do give me the legal term, that is meant to secure the territorial integrity of the country. I mean, we are now begging them, oh, don't slaughter our people. No. What this should be is that the police should investigate, find the culprits, and bring them to book. But the army
But is that
knows,
going to happen?
and that's the point. The army knows that won't happen. So yeah, the army knows that won't happen. So the probability is that, and unfortunately, the army has 4 minutes. In Ugep in 1975, a soldier disappeared. The army blames the community and went into the community and killed quite a number of people. The Ugep community says well over 100 people. The army said, oh, just 10 or something like that. Oti, Zaki Biam. I can pull out a lot of examples off the top of my head of this kind of behavior. It's
okay, but what can the governor do? Because now that he's saying, okay,
It's
show
not the
restraint.
governor. I'm no fan of Ikbasu, but
Yeah.
it's Imam Waka that is talking now. So it's not Ikbasu that is talking. There's really nothing he can do. That's the honest truth. So this is the kind of thing that just essentially proves what we are, a banana republic. Because he knows that there's nothing he can do. So the only thing he can do is to beg them. Anyway, that's just all he can do.
All right, if you're out there and you want to be a part of our talk this morning, please send your WhatsApp messages to 0809-444-0981. We're also taking comments on Twitter. Please use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. I think we should take those messages.
Let's get to another story. Now, this story that we're going to be talking about comes in from the Punch newspaper. Ex-militants seek a return of oil firms to Niger Delta. This is an interesting one. Chata and Mr. C, I'd love to get your opinions on this. Now, this is former... Wow, silence. I'll go, thank you. Former agitators have said, in fact, I'm going to just go with a direct quote here from one of the former agitators, Nature Kuge, who said, "We who once carried guns are now here to preach the message of peace to our people in the region. Peace is the only way we can have the developed environment that we dream of. peace is the only way to attract the multinationals and investors and also be gainfully employed. They're talking about appealing to multinational oil companies which moved out of the region as a result of militancy, asking them to return, promising that there will be peace and stability. So, Mr. C, let's go to you first on this.
Okay, so it's good to see that common sense appears to be prevailing now, and they've realized that their previous antics were not sustainable long term. So they now realize that if the foreign oil companies do not return to the region, the various state and federal agencies tasked with developing the region will not get around to doing it. Now, we have the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs, you have the Niger Delta and Development Commission, you have the Ministry of Environment, you have the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, and most of these states have their local versions of the NDDC. You also have the 13% derivation fund that comes to them from Federation accounts. Yet that region is highly underdeveloped. So beyond calling the guys to come back, has there been a shift in their attitudes? Has there been a shift in their thinking? Because before now, all they focused on is grabbing, taking. They need to realize that the oil companies are not supposed to develop that region for them. It is their elected representatives at state and federal levels that should chart the policies that will develop those areas. Now, let's see how far this goes, because it appears that they're broke. And that brings in seriously. Because
I mean, for this to be a topic of conversation.
So they're really broke. So they're really broke, and they want the oil companies to come back so they can start getting constituency community development grants, so they can share the money around. And then when the companies come back,
Then
they employ members of the community, a certain number, and then those members then extrapolate the dividends of the employment further down the line. And the unemployment rate in the Niger Delta region is quite shocking. It's quite shocking and it's disappointing. And I sincerely hope that this is not a ploy to get them back so they can start their previous ways of extorting money from the oil companies.
Is this going to get them back, Cheta?
So I like where Mr. C landed in terms of unemployment rates, because with the exception of Benue, which funny enough we're talking about earlier, the states with the highest unemployment rates in the country tends to be the Niger Delta states. Underemployment is another discussion entirely. What I would like to tell those boys, if they are capable of listening, because it's one thing for them, is that it's more than words. So often the undiscussed tragedies of the Niger Delta include how the spate of insecurity, often caused by indigents who have legitimate grievances against multinationals and the government, has caused multinationals to leave. And given the dynamics of the oil market, the multinationals are not coming back. Let's get that out of the window. So it has essentially become a vicious cycle. Multinationals coming to drill for oil. Lax Nigerian regulation means that those multinationals misbehave and pollute the environment because there are no consequences, we don't enforce. This means that the locals begin to agitate and demand for reparations. Then the government moves in and suppresses those local demands with brutal violence, which leads the locals to take up arms for their agitation, which creates the very insecurity that makes the multinationals want to check out the window. So it's a vicious cycle. And the question we should be asking is, how do we break that vicious cycle? And to be honest, I have no answer for that. Because now that indigenous oil companies are beginning to take over the almost expanded oil wells that multinationals are leaving behind, we're actually going to see worse environmental degradation.
All right. Well, what's a vision for the future? We've got your messages coming in. Hashtag FreshlyPressed981 up on Twitter. Make sure you send we've been watching your messages coming in on the live stream. Make sure you keep on leaving those messages. And of course, you can watch that live stream on youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. Going over to WhatsApp 0809 4440981. Fran from Burger says, "My goodness, Jessa, welcome back. The fact and figures machine." And Tony Chima from Ikeja says, "Oh well, Tony, thank you so much for that message." Moving on, Uche Aju says,
"What is the army doing in the east while the north is on fire?"
"Well, Shegun, thank you very much. Cheta and I are back."
Let's move on to our next story. Serap sues Nigerian government over secrecy in spending of loans and debt crisis. This from the Premium Times. Now, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has filed a lawsuit against the government of President Muhammadu Buhari over secrecy in spending of loans so far obtained, and also the unsustainable level of borrowing by the government and 36 states. And it goes deeper and deeper. But Mr. C, we talked about this last week. Serap seems to be, suing. I mean, just 2-3 weeks ago, it was the House of Representatives, but now it's a different story entirely. Walk us through this story.
Okay, thank you, Kai. So, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERP, has again taken the federal government to court. Now, what is the basis or what is the background to this present suit before the ECOWAS Court of Justice? Now, in the recent past, Nigeria has appeared to has actually taken a lot of loans, ostensibly for developmental purposes. Now, the grounds of SERP is this. The details behind the loans are usually opaque. So it's not, the headline is misleading when it says this, it's secret, because a proposal is usually sent to the National Assembly, indicating the amount of the loan and indicating the source of the loan and what the loan should be used for. And those are the basic bare details that are provided. We're never told when the money actually lands or whether the monies actually gotten are used for the purposes for which they were obtained. Now, having said that, SERP is saying that if the federal government and the state governments are not restrained from continuing the borrowing spree, Nigeria would get to a point where it becomes practically impossible to repay the debt.
We're already borrowing to service debt, so we've passed that point. Sorry.
No.
Debt servicing now.
So debt servicing now, it's a study I saw suggested that for every naira we earn, we're using at least 80 kobo to service the debts. Now
The figure got to as high as 92 at the point last year.
Not to understate things, but that seems a bit high.
No, it is very high, but the Minister of Finance has a different perspective. She says Nigeria's debt compared to Nigeria's gross domestic product is a bit low. It's very misleading, so just relax.
Thank you, Mr. C. Such as I'm about to launch for it.
So different perspectives, same event. Now, the truth of the matter is the debt office says Nigeria's current debt stock is $37.9 billion. Now, let me put this in perspective. For 2020 and 2021, our combined revenue for both years was about $3.3 billion. If we were to use that figure on the average and juxtapose it against the current debt stock, and assuming that every single dollar we receive, we don't use it for anything else but to repay our loans, it will take us at least 12 years.
So you think the start of the problem we have is this putting of accountants and stuff. You need an economist.
But Cheta, we're getting to that. So
it's part of the problem. She doesn't even get to GDP.
My question here is
We
this.
don't
For Serap now, they filed these different lawsuits. Will it hold? Will anything happen?
NGO. They are doing their work. Syrup is an NGO that is committed to transparency and accountability. They're doing their work.
Okay.
You understand? The real problem is that at the end of the day, the ECOWAS court will give Nigeria is the hegemon in West Africa.
Okay.
So even if ECOWAS court gives a judgment against the federal government, which is likely, the government will just ignore. There's nothing that the ECOWAS court can do. Sorry.
Speaking about transparency and accountability, let's move on to our next story. In from the Punch newspaper, Electoral Act Amendment Bill bars voters from contesting candidates' certificates in court. A new amendment to the Electoral Act precluding the possibility of voters challenging credentials submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission by candidates. Will this stand, Mr. C?
It shouldn't stand, but Nigeria is, I continue to say this, Nigeria defies logic. Nigeria is an aberration. Now, the existing section 31, subsection 5 of the Electoral Act says any Nigerian who is aware that a contestant for any political office has submitted false documents or false credentials can go to court and challenge those credentials and obtain a court declaration. Now, what the smart people in the National Assembly are now proposing is that the right of every Nigerian is removed. The locus, to properly put in legal parlance, is restricted to only fellow contestants at the party primaries. Now, why is this the case? Because most of them are parading forged documents. Their credentials will not stand the test of scrutiny.
Are you saying our government is full of criminals?
A good number of, some of them are criminals. I'm sorry. It's the
Why are you
truth.
letting
Mr. C, that was about.
Why are you
I was
letting me
just
do?
wondering.
No, but you need to
There's
think.
no need to, Cheta, there's no need to walk someone hand in hand down the.
No, Shopper, think about it. Why would they remove the locus of every Nigerian to challenge questionable documents and restrict it to only those who participated in the same primaries?
That is a question we need you to answer up on WhatsApp, up on YouTube, up on Twitter. Give us your thoughts.
Let's move on to our next story real quick. This one here talks about the NURTW.
Okay, yes, from the Premium Times. Okay, let's take this. So for the next couple of stories, the last part of the show will be focusing on Lagos. So, Premium Times newspaper ban NURTW to prevent further violence in Lagos. Party tells Sanwo-Olu. And by the way, that is the Lagos State chapter of the Accord Party.
It's easier for all those camels to search you through the eyes of all
Of
those
the
tools.
Moving on, so the Accord Party asking the governor to prescribe the National Union of Road Transport Workers.
I have what is happening.
And of course, this comes about kind of as on the back of the fracas that happened last week.
We saw a lot of viral videos, and
So-
it might still, with the election on its way,
So, the NURTW has had a very close symbiotic relationship with the ruling party in Lagos State, and it's gone on for at least the last 20 years, at least the last since 1999. That relationship is not ending anytime soon. This is a futile request. It's not going to be honored. It's not going to be granted. Now, when it's time for election, who do you think are the actual foot soldiers deployed and utilized for electoral violence in Lagos for political intimidation? It's this same set of guys. Who are the people that generate money every single day? That conventional schools of wisdom still postulate that a certain portion of those daily revenues goes back to certain sources.
The ICIR last year published a report that said something in the region of 160 billion a year. That is wrath of God money.
No, so
They're not banning them, man. So that's it.
from February 1st,
That's $500 million.
Just help us.
Give or take.
from February 1st, every commercial driver in Lagos State will be paying 800 naira daily to the Lagos State government. Just sit down and do the maths. Election season has started. You're looking, if you have at least 5,000, 6,000 drivers in Lagos, that's north of 50 million. And we know we have more than that. That's every day. Some parks make 100, 200 million every single day. Now, the fracas they referred to last week was over control of motor parks because there's a lot of revenue. And the police in Lagos State, for whatever reason, are unable to deal decisively with this because of the political powers that be. So, NURTW is not going to be banned in Lagos State. They're not going to be sanctioned. And you can't, and this is supported by the official Lagos State government position, where the advisor says, we appeal to them to maintain the peace. How do you appeal to people who have already been violent?
Are they more downful than BRT in Lagos?
Clearly, without a doubt.
There are 434 BRT.
We've got messages up on WhatsApp. This message comes in from Emma, who says the National Assembly is not sincere with this Electoral Act amendment. They are looking for clauses to insert or amend that will make the president not sign the bill, and they won't enforce their veto power. Whilst Ken from Surulere says, welcome back, Cheta. I've said it times without number, these senseless killings will not stop. until the government is serious about bringing an end to them. For me, the government, security agencies, and the like are all complicit in this. Where are the terrorists that have been living in Sambisa Forest and the likes for close to 2 decades? And the government keeps telling us they don't know where they are. But Bumi knows where they are. Your guess is as good as mine, says Ken. And Shedden says, Sarah, please sue state governments too. D from Alausa says, the Minister of Finance is not an accountant, says D from Alausa. What's the, just from Casey, thank you very much for your message. Okay, and more messages are coming in. Peter, EK Peter says, I wish the government can enforce this 800 naira flat rate for buses. I entered a public bus from Aga to CMS, and the driver paid a total of 1,600 naira across different bus stops.
That's who paid the 1,600 naira. You, the consumer. Because they will just raise their prices. I mean, it's market.
Wow.
Let's move on to our next story real quick. This one I would like everybody to, speak on it. It's from the Guardian newspaper. It talks about COVID-19. So Lagos announces the end of the fourth wave. What do you think? Are we ready for this?
Well, from the official figures quoted, we appear to be ready, but there are bigger concerns, and as Cheta just alluded to some of them. Election season is truly here.
Okay.
There will soon be time for political rallies, political gatherings, and you can't have all of that. You can't have all of that if you're still talking about the wave. And records are only as good as the people who keep them. Chata, we keep records. We keep records. Some of the records may not be accurate, some of them may not be totally correct, but we keep records.
Okay.
You rely on records for your work.
No, I consider points.
It makes a point.
All right, first time, Cheta. Real quick, though, let's circle back into this last story. CBN releases e-invoicing guidelines for import-export. Cheta, what do you say to this?
It's a nothing burger. I mean, should CBN be this?
Nope.
Okay. Should MFLA have gone to see Super Eagles?
Why?
He's a CBN governor.
He's not busy.
He offered them 250K.
No, to pass or $10.
Okay, so MFLA was the errand boy that went to tell them.
I'm absolutely loving
He was the messenger.
But
we're totally out of time.
Having
Thank you
good
guys so
news.
much. Thank you for addressing the story and also the Super Eagles.
It's part
Thank
of
you
the
very
plan.
much.
It's the same Papa born two of them. CBN governor doing what he's not supposed to be doing.
on that note, we come to the end of our show, but not the end of the conversation. Keep it going up on Twitter. We are at Smooth981FM. I was about to say Lagos, but that's for YouTube. At Smooth981FM up on Twitter, and you can find our analysts up on Twitter as well. In fact, across all social media platforms.
Yes, you can find Mr. C on Twitter at Mr. C with 2 E's.
At Monsieur C.
No,
please.
on Instagram, Monsieur C, and on Twitter it's Mr.
Oh,
C.
Mr. C.
Okay. There we go.
The Mr. C. Okay.
Oh, the Mr. C.
And across all platforms, you can find Cheta at Chickster. You know it. All right, and of course, we have got more coming up for you during Lagos Talks. That comes up at 10 minutes past 8. Stick with us right here on Smooth 98.1.